we'll just give people time to just come in, guys, and settle down, find their chairs, get a cup of tea, usual stuff. I do miss live events, I have to say. So everyone's filtering nicely. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to yet another Fashion Network webinar. Today's webinar is going to be looking at how virtual reality is changing the fashion industry. We've got two great speakers here, Dan and Jen from Brand Lab Fashion, and we'll be doing a little bit of discussion with those two. And also during the webinar, you'll have a chance to see you'll have a chance to have a demo of Brand Lab Fashion as well. So looking forward to that. Just a few housekeeping rules. So if you've got any comments or questions to ask, there is a chat facility here on Zoom. We'd prefer if you put it in that. There's also a Q&A facility, but that doesn't get checked as often that we find. So there is a chat facility. I see some of you have also found the raising your hand function. So if you do use the raising your hand function, what it'll allow us to do is actually switch on your mic, and you can actually ask Dan and Jen directly a question via audio. I would actually prefer if you did do that, because it means I'd have to read stuff out. Takes me back to school, and I have to read out poems in assembly, so I'd rather not do that. But anyway, but if you have got any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hands. What we're going to do is, rather than just us go through the discussion today and then have go to the floor afterwards, like I say, just feel free to drop your questions in as and when, and we'll just introduce it when there's a break in the conversation. So today's, as I said, today's webinar is all about how VR is changing fashion. These are our discussion points. So we'll be looking at online fashion showrooms, fashion trade shows. We'll be talking a little bit about digital catwalks and how they're benefiting brands, digital avatars and 3D modeling. And then we'll have a bit of a discussion about the future of the wholesale business. And within all of this, Dan and Jen will be showing us off some of their software. So yeah, should be informative, entertaining, and hopefully you guys out there should get some useful insights from us. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dan and Jen. Guys, can I just get you both to sort of introduce yourselves, a little bit about your career history as well? So yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Dale, and yeah, thanks for having us, and hi everyone. My name's Dan O'Connell. This is Jen Drury. We're the co-founders of Brand Lab. Briefly about myself, I was actually in finance for many years, and got invited to invest in a fashion brand a long time ago, and kind of got the fashion bug there. It's at the fashion brands where I met Jen, but basically, to cut a very long story short, I was frustrated with some of the sales channels and the expense of kind of attending all the trade shows or you know, pop-up showrooms and the like, and fashion shows, but also in the inefficiencies of the ordering process. I think we only had a couple of hundred clients in about 12 countries, but it just seemed to be very cumbersome to do business. And it was around that time that the kind of the idea of a digital solution in what was then in wholesale fashion was starting to come to my mind. So yeah, that's my brief career history.
Yeah, again, a very different career than anything in fashion. I started off working for local government, for a government-funded charity, largely based around recruitment. So that was kind of my background. As Dan said, we met when he had a fashion brand. I actually had a number of retail stores that I used to buy Dan's brand, so became one of his customers. And then again, very frustrated with the buy-in channels, the cumbersome processes of having to buy from so many different brands, and yeah, just very expensive and inefficient ways of doing things. So I think that was our aim, really, to kind of make sure that we could make things more accessible and more efficient and cost effective for both brands and buyers in the industry. Thanks,
Jen. Thanks, Dan. And by the way, we're all Welsh on here today. It's the first of all Welsh. Welsh chair, Welsh panel. So if any of you guys out there don't get any of our jokes, forgive us. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm just going to stop sharing so we can just see each other a little bit better. So yeah, so my first discussion point really is just a little bit about, you know, like Jen, you were just talking about how you used to buy Dan's brand and stuff, and how the whole fashion showroom thing is was changed. And Dan, we've been chatting for pretty much lockdown. I think I met you properly in March, and things have changed quite heavily for you. So can you just talk a little bit about the progression of how online fashion showrooms have just sort of like just gone, next level over the last 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, obviously no one knew that the dreadful pandemic was coming. Brand Lab, we've been working on it for a number of years now. I think what the pandemic has done, though, is it's brought forward perhaps maybe the inevitable that was going to happen in maybe 3 to 4 years, and it's brought it to now. Whereas digital solutions, virtual showrooms, virtual trade shows, catwalk shows, and all these other things were maybe a nice to have before, and maybe, dare I say it, in some people's eyes, a gimmick. It became the case that some people literally needed this type of solution to continue to trade. So it did go very busy for us and other companies like us, as you can imagine. And it's also brought on a whole load of new entrants to the market, which we welcome, which is really good. So I think the industry is definitely accelerating towards the use of virtual reality and digitization. But I think what's been good about it is how, to be fair, in the industry, especially the wholesale industry, there's kind of agents who have been doing it the kind of face-to-face way, meeting and greeting their clients for 30 or 40 years, have all of a sudden had to become kind of experts in tech. And I think the way some people have embraced the new technologies has been phenomenal, because although they maybe have been forced to use it, 'cause there's no other choice, they're now glad they have, because they can see the benefits of digital in our industry.
It's always beggared belief for me. I've never understood why consumers can buy clothes digitally, and yet the wholesale side of the business is still, I'll meet you at 3, go for a coffee, have a few beers afterwards. I mean, Jen, what's your perspective? How have you? Because obviously you come from more of a buying background. How have you noticed things have changed?
Well, I think I agree with you. I think we still can't believe how much of the industry is exactly as you say. So certainly, obviously, you have the trade show industries, but just the showroom appointments are, like you said, more about a coffee, a quick look through the collection, and a couple of drinks afterwards. So I think we're definitely seeing a lot of cost restrictions in larger buyers now. So that's huge in our industry at the moment for brands. So they have to react in a way that is going to save their bigger buyers money and make it more efficient for them. And I think smaller buyers, again, don't have the time to leave their independent stores, or if they are a little bit bigger, they don't have the money to be able to kind of support that process any longer. So it has to change, really.
I think that's true, but also the relationship side of it's really important. It's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I think it's not so much that people haven't wanted to use digital, it's just the culture of showroom visits, trade show meetings, because relationships are really important in fashion, and they always will be. And I think our big challenge was to try and fuse the gap between digitization but trying to keep things immersive. And this is why virtual reality is really important. So if you take our one of our products, the VR showroom product, we have an integrated video chat on there. So it means that the salesperson and the buyer, or the relationships, can get together in an immersive environment and at least feel like they're with their peers, because nothing can replace face-to-face, and and that we know that, but digital can certainly be a really good enhancement.
Yeah, I think as well, just quickly following on from that, it's all about, I think relationships are the most important in wholesale fashion. I think the reason that it's easier to sell e-commerce direct to consumer is because they still see the high street stores, so the brand is still able to reach that market and tell their story. And that was one of the biggest things that we wanted to get across for our brands, is that they want to be able to tell that story and show that the way in which their collection works for them, and the ideas behind it, and really tell the brand story and the brand DNA. So I think it's really important that now that brands are able to do that, rather than just use a standard B2B e-commerce website. They're able to be a lot more interactive and showcase their brand in a much more immersive way.
It's almost forced the issue, isn't it, really? I mean, I know loads of agents, and I've been around loads of showrooms and loads of trade shows, and it's I often do wonder, like, a lot of these agents spend fortunes on having fancy showrooms for 12 months of the year, and it's like probably only working those showrooms for probably a month of the year, really, if you actually condense it all into time. So I've often wondered why that shift hasn't changed from a wholesale perspective. And I suppose lockdown it's obviously benefit you guys, but it's made people think again, and maybe the wholesale end of the business is now catching up with the consumer. And we've got a hand up here, Bissy. If you've got a question, great, leave your hand up. If you haven't, do you want to just put it down again. There you go. Yes, like I say, if anyone's got questions, just feel free to, or comments, just feel free to put in the chat, or put your hand up. So yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about, because obviously I want to try and touch a little bit on the wholesale side of it, because obviously that's where you guys are sort of living very much, but also be good to chat about how, from a consumer point of view as well, at some stage towards the end of the discussion, how VR is changing the whole experience of purchasing fashion here. But can we just talk a little bit more then about trade shows and you know, I mean, I've been speaking to a few trade show providers recently, with the work we do at the Fashion Network, and so it's quite interesting because some of the big guys have, you know, mentioned their names. They're just in trade show, got to get people together. But, you know, what do you see the future? Are we going to go back to trade shows as they were, or do you think it's going to be a bit combined, that people are going to use digital trade shows like you guys, or what? I hope.
I sincerely hope that trade shows, you know, will come back. I got a lot of respect for trade show industry. There's some brilliant people who work in it, and I actually feel for a lot of people in that industry, because obviously by sheer economics of what's gone on, and there's a lot of really good people losing jobs in that industry at the moment. So I think we all hope that that'll get back to what it was. But I think it's very interesting with digital. I think trade show providers have probably been quite slow to embrace digitization, and not and because you have to remember, stuff like what we do is not designed to replace trade shows or replace showroom visits. It's designed to enhance it. So if you think at a trade show, say that 15,000 people visit a trade show, what you'll find is that there was probably over 100,000 applications for those passes, and trade show providers factor that in. So 15,000 people turn up, but there was 85,000 people who showed interest and registered and didn't turn up. I think digital trade shows can try and kind of, you know, bridge that 85% gap, but also enhance the model. I mean, obviously there's no choice at the moment, and I'm, you know, it's quite a bleak outlook for the next couple of years, because I think most analysts will say that the amount of travel in the fashion supply chain will take ages to get anywhere near what it was. Now that's something that may be a good thing because of sustainability and things like that, but it doesn't help the trade show industry. I think, to answer your question, hopefully the model will be a thriving trade show industry that's a bit of a hybrid model where they have kind of digital versions attached to maybe a more curated face-to-face environment where there's face-to-face appointments rather than just, you know, 15,000 people all just buzzing around one big building. But yeah, I certainly hope it gets back to where it was. But I think certainly now the companies out there who have embraced digitization and will be the ones who will be on the front foot. And I think, to add to that, some of the trade show companies that have done all the fashion weeks, London Fashion Week and all that, I don't think they've gone far enough, because they've kind of advertised that they're going to replace the show with a virtual show, but really people are just being directed to pre-recorded videos, lives, and e-commerce sites of brands, or B2B e-commerce sites of brands. No real immersiveness. I think they have to go further and create immersive environments in 3D where people think they're with their peers. It feels more immersive. It feels like you're with people even though you're not.
And that's the sort of experiential side of it, isn't it, really, which you're talking about? And what else can, well, I mean, what else can digital bring to the party, and what can real world trade shows bring from digital into their trade shows? Are there any specific examples you can talk about of how you can knit these two things together?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've recently were approached by Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Russia. So obviously they still actually held a number of physical events this year, but they wanted to reach a bigger audience than usual. So this isn't really just about them reaching their normal audience. This is about them, you know, having a global audience that they're able to target, and obviously a lot more cost effective than usual. So for Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week in Russia, we were able to create kind of like a trade show experience, so that buyers were able to approach brands directly, but they were also able to see the live show as if they would, you know, as if they were there in the audience from a 360 perspective. So people weren't actually missing out. So, you know, it basically created a bit of a hybrid environment. And I think that definitely works, because there's a lot of people that want to view these events, want to be there, but can't for whatever reason, whether that be cost or distance, you know. So it's it's certainly an extra that we're able to create.
I think the big thing is with digital, there's no limitation on square footage or space. So you can have what you want.
Reach, I guess, as well, because even what we discovered with these webinars we're doing now, we're getting people from New York, from as far afield as Delhi, and you know,
I think, and that offsets the fact that, let's face it, it's going to be always better to be there touching and feeling fabric. Of course, it always is. But rather than maybe, you know, because of cost or time, you can only have a small booth at a trade show, you could create, you know, a 10,000 square foot booth with all the imagery you want, all the media you want, all the assets you want. And we're increasingly being approached by brands to create environments, because basically we create bespoke environments that can look exactly like an existing physical showroom or store or wherever, all the way through to where your imagination can take you. So we're having brands approach us saying, well, we've got a kind of galactical marketing campaign, can you create a showroom in space for us? And of course we can. We've created showrooms in the Alps for a brand that had a marketing campaign around that. So it's really good, because obviously fashion people are really creative. The people within brands are really creative. They can use their imagination to create anything. And we use techniques such as CGI and digital design to create these 3D environments, but crucially allow them to speak face to face via the live video chat within the environments and move around together. So it feels really immersive.
Well, should we have a little bit of a look then of what you can do?
Sure.
Danielle, are you still there? If you are, can you bring up brilliant?
Danielle's just controlling from her screen, but as you can see here, this is actually a replica of Barber's showroom in North London, literally down to the staircase, the flooring, the light switches, everything else. And as Danny flicks around the scenes on the bottom, you get to view their collections. You can zoom in on them. Just very interestingly, the info tags you see there, basically a selection of mini web browsers. So in this case, they're connected to a B2B ordering system that we designed and created for them. Obviously, you have to log in, so we can't show pricing, so that's fine. But also within there is things like video 360 spins. And that's interesting as well, because the richer the asset we receive from the brand, the richer the show that we can create for them. We've never had any of these items that are hanging on the rails there. We're just given 2D images, we digitize them, and we put them on fake rails, as you can see there. I don't know if you want to flick over to the June one, Dan, just to show a different type of render. So this is a press day showroom that we did for June. As you can see, very luxurious feel to it, very realistic. And this is all done in digital design, and you can kind of zoom into the shelves and see the products close up. And then when you do that, again, you can open up whatever media you want, whether it be 360 spin video, catwalk videos, you know, really high-res photos. This is really interesting as well, Dale, because we've used a certain type of render which the brand wanted in here. But if Danny just flicks over, Dan, can you just flick over to the Denver thing? This is something we've just done for a real estate company, and we've used full CGI, so it's really realistic. This is an apartment block that's not even been built yet, and we've remodeled it so that the prospective buyers can go in there live with an estate agent and have a walk around the apartments. Do you want to just flick over to the pool, Danny, and just show kind of the render of that, and then maybe one of the apartments? You know, we've literally recreated that whole environment. So rather than selling from a brochure, they can sell by walking people around. And I only just wanted to show this to show the quality of the CGI that can be created if need be. And then finally, Danny will show you a bit about Mercedes Fashion Week. It was called Pop-Up Shop. We created kind of like a trade show style floor where there was, I think, 18 of their brands, had a booth. And buyers were able to go over to the designer, click our call button, and speak to the designer face to face on their stand. So obviously this moves a little bit into the trade show environments. So it's pretty cool. But one thing to reiterate on our platform, you'll see down the bottom of Danny's screen, there's 4 white icons down the bottom. The one in the middle there, she's hovering over, called shared viewing. It is, for me, the most important bit of our tech, because we go back to relationships and how important they are in fashion. If Danny clicked that now, obviously we're on Zoom and a webinar, so we can't use our camera and video, but we could send the link that appears when you click that to every single person on this webinar. They could just copy it to, you know, we could WhatsApp them, email them on a phone, Mac, iPad, anything, and they will be in there with us. So it just makes you feel like you're a little bit more connected to your peers. You're in there with them and you're moving around with them. So the face-to-face video chat for us is really, really key, because Zoom is great, but it's static. Like, obviously I can't be in there with Danny. She's just doing her thing and we're all watching. But when you share the link and you're in there together, it's dual controlled. You can work it together. You can walk around together. So the inference there is that when buyers go into a showroom, you know, when the, I don't know, the salesperson from Barber or June or Versace is with the buyer from Harrods or John Lewis, in real life, the buyer walks over and says, what about this over here? Can you tell me about this? You know, and how can I create an assortment here? Well, we can do that with dual controls in these 3D environments. So it's pretty exciting. And I think the tech as CGI and things is getting so strong now that we can make things so realistic that we've done showrooms where people have said they thought it was photographs and not digital design. So it's the tech is really moving forward.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Anything else on the show, or can we have our screen back, Danielle?
did you want? Yeah, I was just going to say, unless you wanted to see a bit of the Brand Lab world development, but we
can come to that towards the end if you like. Sure. Yeah. Because we've got a couple of questions in. So Bissy's got a question. What about the higher end of the market where you have to have one-on-one with your customers? Bissy, are you talking about, can you answer that? Or, because I'm not sure whether you mean...
Yeah, sure, definitely. Yeah. So obviously, as Dan mentioned, the most important function of the technology is the face-to-face video conferencing. So basically, you can book an appointment system where, exactly as you would in a normal static showroom, you would book appointments with all of your customers, your buyers, and then you could see them one by one. And we have a number of not just high-end brands, but quite a few high-end luxury showrooms that have begun using our technology now to be able to, you know, to kind of still give that VIP experience, and not just to send out line sheets or PDFs, but actually to make that buyer still feel very important in the process. So I think that the one-on-one situation is very easy for us to replicate, because, you know, you can spend as long in the showroom with that customer as you would in real life.
And then on the trade show side of things, even though we could create, you know, a model where there's 500 vendors in a trade show, basically the link could go out to unlimited people to walk around and browse, but then when they want to speak to someone one-to-one, they can click the call button, and we effectively have like a matchmaking service where they can have an appointment with someone on the stand during the course of the day, one-to-one, privately. Yeah.
So you kind of eliminate that. Hiya, Dan, I didn't know you were here, mate, when you're having a private conversation. So when you're like, oh yeah, talking about that's margins. Right. And, so that's quite cool. I've got another question here as well, and this is, sorry, the thing's slowing. Hi, Natalie from Milan. How can digital give the sense of touch so important for fabrics? I work for a luxury Italian fashion brand. Touch is our DNA. Well, you could also ask that question from an e-com point of view, couldn't you? But Jen,
sorry, go on, Jen.
I was going to say that I think that's, so one of the things that we always say is these digital showrooms are never going to replace the actual physical appointments that you will have with your buyers. And I think the ideal situation is when you have a number of buyers. So we work with, like we said, a large established brands, and those brands will have, you know, customers that are already very aware of the quality and the touch and feel of their product. And I think that's where the product works very well. Obviously, again, we're not looking to replace the existing, you know, showroom appointment or trade show. It is purely an enhancement. And I think the way in which it can work, and it has worked for a number of our brands, is obviously prior to lockdown, is that you would have your showroom appointment, so you can send out a link not only prior to the appointment but post appointment. appointment with the assortment included, and then the buyer then can go back into the showroom, have a second look around, look at their selection, and obviously just take a little bit more time over the process. And one of the things that has been really encouraging to us as a business is that each individual order value for all of our many of our brands is dramatically increased. And I think when you're in a showroom appointment, it is very difficult to to find the amount of time, whether it be from a cost or time point of view, to be able to really take your time over that. And I think it's just going to increase the each order value for each individual customer as we go along.
At the moment, we get round the fabric question, the touch and feel question, which is a really good question, is probably the question that's been asked to us from day one, and it's very valid, because obviously at the moment there's not tech to replicate that. At the moment, people who use our service get around it. If a buyer in America is connected with a European brand via our platform, sometimes the brand might send one sample or a swatch or something in the post. Of doing things a bit manual, but just to get around it. And there is technology that will come in the future that will help. Some of it's being developed at an early stage now, where there'll be kind of like gloves which you can connect to your computer, which will send sensory gloves basically that can replicate different fabrics as you click an item. Probably a couple of years away, but it's definitely in the offing. But of course, you can't, for luxury brands, you can never replicate the touch and feel. But what you can do is still meet people in your showroom physically so they can touch and feel. But also the people who couldn't make it, the people who didn't turn up, couldn't fly, you can get your virtual links to all these people in the world, even as a marketing tool, to make more of them look and think, I want to go and touch and feel that fabric. I'm going to fly to Milan. So it's a marketing tool as well.
You're saying it's not either or, is it? It's a bit of
not at all. And I think that goes to say it's exactly following the consumer process. So I don't think that if we'd have had this conversation 10 years ago about buyers spending what they do on Net-a-Porter, far-fetched luxury sites, then we certainly wouldn't have expected that to be happening. So I think the wholesale industry is very much following the retail industry in that way.
Yeah. About time. Another question here. What reasons do brands give to invest into VR when they have been getting sales through their websites? Who wants to pick that up?
Okay, so on the wholesale side, I assuming that question's more around B2C. This is really interesting because it's a whole new conversation on virtual reality and B2C. So we're in current negotiations and literally just signed a deal with quite a large company where they're going to embed a virtual store in their e-commerce website. Now, we all know that loads of big e-com players are trying all sorts of things to make e-com shopping a bit more fun and a bit more immersive. ASOS are doing the augmented reality stuff. You've got the stuff where you can try stuff on and insert yourself into the environment. VR shopping is going to be really cool because we all like shopping online, but it can be a bit cumbersome. The drop-off rates of people who put stuff in baskets and then don't continue because their attention gets diverted elsewhere is quite strong. What VR shopping for e-com can do is, one, you feel like you're walking around a store, which is a much nicer experience. Two, you can have a shop assistant there live face-to-face, so it replicates the store environment. Or even using our video tech, you can invite your friends to go shopping with you. So cool. We've already got the tech where you could be in a JD Sports store and invite a number of your friends, and all of you are there having a chat as you walk around the store looking at items. So I just think, again, it's an enhancement to e-com shopping, which is a bit different to the norm that we all know and love. Yeah,
I think we talked about brand DNA and telling the story, and I think a lot of it is due to merchandising, and that is something that you're obviously able to do a lot easier in a replicated physical environment than it is in just on an e-com kind of website, whether that be B2B or B2C.
Okay, cool. There's a couple more questions here that I'd like to just run through quickly, if that's okay, and then I want to start talking about catwalks and the avatars, if that's all right. So the next question from Anil is, what is the technical implementation plan? I'm assuming he means in terms of onboarding to...
Okay.
Anil, if I've misread your question, sorry, do you want to just put your hand up? You can ask it directly, but if not, do you want to just try and answer it as best you can?
Yeah, sure. We have a very specific onboarding process, and it's kind of been developed over the last few years when it comes to when we previously had our B2B e-com product, and obviously now with the virtual showrooms, and it's a very specific product, a very specific process where when brands sign the contract with us and decide to go ahead with a virtual showroom, we initially take the assets from them. So whether or not they have their own assets or they want us to do that for them. So we have a very large studio in Wales, and obviously we have one in America as well. So we either complete that process for them or they send us the assets. So they send us the images. They will decide whether they want a template showroom or a bespoke showroom. So that's obviously very much part of the process and part of the cost. If they want a bespoke showroom, they get a number of appointments with our digital developers, where they will obviously be quite involved in the process of creating something. And obviously we have a number of template showrooms that they're able to access as well. So in terms of that process from the very beginning, it's very simple for them to send us their assets. If they do take a template showroom, it can be turned around very, very quickly. And then the process continues with regards to whether they want to use our B2B or whether they have their own. And again, so it very much depends on whether they have the assets or whether they want to create that for them.
The onboarding process is an interesting one because it's certainly a lot quicker than obviously physical. So if you're building a showroom and you're shop fitting it and building it all out and doing the rails, like our record is for a kind of small amount of product. I think we had a showroom assets given to us in the morning, 2D photographs, and we had it done by the end of the day. But that brings up another point as well about re-merchandising. The reason that the fashion industry goes on the seasons, or certain company work the seasons, is because the physical constraints of supplying their showrooms, stocking their showrooms all around the world and getting it ready for their selling seasons. We've had brands already who have said, right, you've built our showroom, 200 products for spring, summer, brilliant. Can you just remove those 3 rooms and have 1 room for our 30 best sellers? We're going to try an in-season sale. We're like, yeah, we can do that in half a day. We can then do another showroom the month after. It's starting to make people change the way they're selling, because unlike physical, where you'd have to, if you want to re-merchandise and rebrand a showroom, you've got to get the shop fitters in, you've got to get the decorators in and everything else. With digital, there's no constraints. So all of a sudden, there's brands, we have one in Australia, they're starting just to release 25 products a month in a virtual showroom by us. So it's very interesting how quick we can onboard quicker than the physical space. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's changing the old 2-season drops. Well, then again, fast fashion's changed that anyway, hasn't it, as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of brands are frustrated with having to follow the fashion calendar so closely, obviously because of trade shows and because of fashion shows. So I think it's really important for them to be able to have access to their global market as and when they want it.
Cool. I'm just conscious of time here, guys. So I've got a few other questions I'd like to just run through. If we can sort of try and keep them fairly briefish if possible, because there's a few things we want to go through. We want to get to the avatars, and there's a question again from Bissy about catwalks. We'll get to that in a bit, don't worry about that. But the question I want is for small businesses, how much should they have in order to have a good experience with their customers?
How much in terms of money, or how?
Yeah, Joshua, do you want to just I'll move on to the next question, but Joshua, if you want to clarify that question for us.
Yeah, if it's with regards to cost, Dale, it's quite arbitrary, because our costs depend on the amount of product, whether it's a bespoke showroom. But what I would say is that our contracts go from a very small amount all the way up to hundreds of thousands of pounds. But for a small brand with not a punitive amount of products, you could probably get a VR showroom done for the whole year for the cost of less than attending one trade show.
Okay.
So
there's 2 questions here actually about costs as well. Natalie's popped up again and said, so I mean, I guess what you're saying from a cost point of view, it's not same as going to a huge trade show. There is the entry level's a bit easier. Is that right?
Yeah, entry level for a whole year of having a VR showroom would be less than exhibiting at a decent trade show. But obviously, you then have got your show 365 days a year. You've got your products that can reach markets really quickly at the touch of a button, instantly throughout the year, rather than a 2-day event.
You know what I'll do, Dan and Jen? If anyone wants to know more about specifics and costs, I'll put up Jen and Dan's email at the end of the thing, and they can email you directly about that. It's probably the best thing to do.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we can chat about
please,
more thought leadership stuff. And so what else have I got here? Does virtual reality work for all types of fashion? Do you want to have a go at answering that?
Yeah, definitely. All types of fashion and many different other industries as well. I mean, we're inundated with inquiries from so many different industries. And obviously our focus currently is remaining with fashion. And I think Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we work with fast fashion brands, we work with very luxury brands, we work with accessories brands. So we were very lucky to put something together for Richemont recently, which involved a Cartier showroom, which obviously, as you can imagine, the jewelry is very small. So we had to look at ways around how we showcase that and the best way to do that. But yeah, we have every type of fashion, from swimwear to footwear to, you know, anything in between. I think yesterday we signed a hat brand. So, you know, it's very, very varied.
Socks. We've done sock brands.
Yeah, sock brands.
Okay.
You know, there's always hundreds and hundreds of socks to showcase. So obviously we have to be very kind of inventive in how we do that.
Yeah, and going back to the lady from Milan who mentioned, obviously, the touch and feel of luxury women's wear garments. Obviously, sometimes accessories can work even better because, you know, it's not so important for the touch and feel. So yeah, anything that needs to be, so basically the way I would say is that anything that needs to be sold online, but in an immersive 3D environment, face to face, we can do it.
We've also got some really great tools on our B2B as well. So just very briefly, we started off life as an e-com B2B product, and we still use that product now alongside our virtual showroom. So it's connected by the info tags that you saw earlier, and on there's a lot of really great imagery and zoom tools for, you know, fabric compositions and things like that. So you can really kind of get the feel of the garment on our B2B as well as an addition to the showroom.
Okay, we've got a hand up here, and I'm just from Ledetta, I think that's it. Ledetta, I'm going to put you live, if that's okay. If you don't want to go live, then I would put your hand down. But okay, let me hold on a second. Hang on, I think I'm going to need hosting tab if you're there. Sorry, Scarlett. I don't think. Sorry, I can't seem to. Oh, here we go. Ledetta, can you hear us? No, it doesn't seem to be working, so I'm going to have to come back to that. Oh, here we go. Yes, it's working. Ledetta, can you hear us? Hello? No, I'll give up on that one. Never mind.
Ledetta's she's on mute.
Yeah, Ledetta's muted.
She'll have to unmute herself.
Okay.
So maybe that's why.
Okay, never mind. Well, she's written a question here anyway. In your experience, which countries have been the fastest to adapt to more digital retail and wholesale landscape? Are they any countries or brands? Do you want to answer that?
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely the USA.
Yeah.
We found that I think 60% of our incoming inquiries are from the States at the moment. That's partly due to some of the big competitors of ours on the B2B ordering platform side, like Jaw and You Order and companies like that, are obviously they started in the States. So I think brands were a little bit kind of ahead over there in terms of using B2B ordering systems. But yeah, certainly the States, they just seem to be willing to invest in tech. You know, maybe willing to accept that it's something they've got to do to stay ahead of the curve. But then Australia's really good, Oceania, and increasingly Europe as well. But if I had to choose one, I would say the States.
The States, okay. So just to move on to a couple of these discussion points that we've advertised. So just tell us a little bit about catwalks, your thoughts on digital catwalks from both a B2B and a B2C.
With avatars.
Yeah.
And also, talk about avatars if you can, because that's something I'm finding.
You know, the digital catwalk stuff that I've seen on kind of digital avatars. It's obviously, we as a tech company, we enjoy anything that embraces the use of digitalization. I'm not sure really it's needed in the current situation, because the one thing I would say is digital avatars, digital design is getting better and better and better. From where it was a couple of years ago to now, in how quickly you can deploy it and how nice it looks is just worlds away. But I'm not sure about digital catwalks. I think even with the pandemic, with social distancing, you can stream or within a virtual environment, you can do a really good live catwalk on live models. And I think there'll always be, it's always nice to see how a garment, drapes on a live model. But that said, the tech is getting better and better and better. But I think that the industry will demand it being perfect before they fully embrace the use of those type of things?
I think as well, going back a few years, we developed some technology that we still use now, and that is that we're able, as long as you know, it's a pre-recorded fashion show, we're able, or if it's live, we know the order, we're able to actually allow buyers to buy from the moving image, and there's a way that we can still do that. So there's so many different ways around using actual catwalks that it really would seem a shame to kind of to lose that process, because it is really the creative part of fashion.
Yeah, and then talk a little bit about the avatar aspect of it, because that's something I find fascinating at the moment. It's just like almost to actually go and get yourself styled within like that, you know, it's, you know, and being particularly, you know, I was telling you before we went on the webinar about there was a business that does makeup avatars to be able to, you know, change your face, not change your face, but change the makeup on your face, and it's just be able to do that in you know, quicker than you can do in real life. I mean, just let us know your thoughts on what you think about how avatars change things.
I think augmented reality is really good. So there's a lot of tech now around, isn't there, with retail e-com, where you can create an avatar yourself, and then you can see yourself in the clothes on the avatar, and you can even, you know, shape the dimensions of your body and everything else to see how certain things will fall on you. So yeah, I mean it's really cool. It's really cool. Anything that can help replicate a you know, a real life kind of situation is well worth doing. I think digital design, though, is a really good discussion point all the way through. I mean, I'm not sure if Danny, if you can make Danny the host, she'll show you an example of digital design. Yeah. Do you want to share? Digital design for garments is undoubtedly the future. If there was a stock market indices on digital design, I would put everything I got into it, because it's inevitable with how well it's going. So this is just a 2D image, obviously, but we just want to quickly call it up. But that there is not a photograph of a Louis Vuitton bag. It's a digital design. There's basically, you know, there's a 3D model. You can open it up, look inside it, turn it around, and things like that. And the models are getting better and better and better. Perry Ellis International out of Miami, a huge multinational, 80-odd brands, thousands, hundreds and thousands of distributors, agents, offices, sub-offices all around the world. For their 80 brands, I think they produce something like 300,000 samples a year that go to all these places. Now, they're committed to eradicating the use of physical samples within about 12 to 18 months, I think, and make them all digital. So first of all, you've got cost saving, because you're making one set of digital samples, not, you know, 300 sets, 500 sets, whatever it is. Two, the environment, and, you know, just making and then getting rid of hundreds of thousands of samples just for a selling season, I think is outrageous anyway. So there's a sustainability aspect, but then, and this is crucial, it's the consistency of design at the manufacturing stage. So lots of companies are starting to use 3D digital design for the manufacturing process, for consistency across factories and things. But then we can take these assets, put them in a virtual showroom, and a buyer can go in, pick it up, turn it around, put it on a desk, make an assortment. So digital design is the future. It's something that we're investing in, and going back to the sales process. And I you know, the richer the asset we get from the brand, the better the virtual showroom. The ones that are investing in digital design are the ones who have the better looking showrooms.
Yeah,
I can feel the touch and feel brigade barking at me now. I can feel, I can't feel it, touch it, I can feel it.
Yeah, and again, that's why we say it isn't a replacement. And I think from a sustainability point of view, we've really got to take that into account, because if you look at an organisation like Perry Ellis, for example, and the hundreds or sometimes thousands of sample sets that they're creating, and then I'm not sure if they do, but you know, there are a lot of really large brands that then go on to burn those samples. You know, it's such an awful thing for the environment. And from a sustainability point of view, we absolutely have to look at new ways of doing things, and that comes from not just digital design, but travel and everything else that's involved.
With digital design as well, Dale, it used to be quite punitive to produce them. It would take an artist like, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks to do something of quality. Now you can turn them around in a matter of days, so the cost has come right down as well. So it's one of those things where more and more people do them, because originally it was too costly, and now it's getting more accessible to all.
And you've also got 3D printing as well, haven't you, which is now something else.
Exactly.
So just to clarify where we're up to at the moment, because we've got 15-20 minutes left. So we've talked about virtual showrooms, virtual trade shows. We've talked a little bit about catwalks. We've talked a bit about avatars. I'd love to carry on talking about avatars, because I find it really And now we've talked about digital design, which, believe it or not, I went to uni as a designer, and I just remember the technology was kind of around then, but nowhere near what it is now.
Yeah.
And that ability to design products without all that sampling and all that kind of stuff is, is fascinating. We've got a few more questions here. There's a few in the Q&A actually, Dan and Jen. I don't know, you can actually answer them live. There's one from the Peppy Jeans group. I think that's the one about costs. And there's another one about how can people feel attached to digital items? What are the feelings of interest? You can answer them directly if either you want to on the Q&A aspect.
Whatever works. Whatever's easiest.
But this one in the chat room is really interesting. Sorry, focusing on quantities point of view, would it be a struggle for companies? Should it be developed a new kind of buyer merchandising role, which is actually very interesting because we're doing a webinar about how buying and merchandising roles are changing. Are there any stats to talk about how your platform has helped change sales? Do you want to sort of respond to that? Who wants to pick that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, well, we can't obviously comment on individual brands, but you have to look at it in context. So when lockdown happened and the dreadful pandemic, there were brands that used us, and then there were brands that did their selling by Zoom or send in lookbooks or PDFs or whatever, and I think you have to measure it against that, not what it was before. That said, we have a couple of customers who are in America who run their whole wholesale business through us, and some big buyers, Bloomingdale's, Saks, you know, all the big ones, and they reported they'd factored in a 25 to 30% reduction on sales because of the pandemic, and they actually had a 12% increase on sales from the same period last year. Whether that's just down to us, I don't know. But what they put it down to was they could reach more buyers. Because in the showroom, in the huge showroom in the middle of New York, they can only see a finite number of people a week per salespeople. On digital, they could see far more. And I think that the results speak for themselves. So we're delighted with that. Also, Jen touched on it earlier, the fact that even before the pandemic, people could go to a physical showroom. Buyers always feel really rushed. You know, they've got to pick 25 items from 600 for their little section of their store and merchandise it in their mind or on a rail in an hour. What they were doing with us then is going back to the office or home, clicking the virtual link and spending a bit more time on their assortment. That was resulting in bigger orders as well.
So just to clarify with that as well, the brand doesn't have to be in there with the buyer. So it can be a really easy process for the buyer to have the link and just pop in there on their own and just feel very kind of relaxed and at ease about doing that. And then if they did have a question, they can arrange a further appointment with the brand to meet them in there.
But so Dale, talking about the visual merchandising aspect of that question, there's a product we've got in development now which we're really excited about. We've actually built it, but we haven't launched it yet. It's called Assortment Builder, and effectively it'll allow people buyers to go into the showroom and merchandise an empty rail like they do in real life. So they'll drag and drop off one rail and merchandise an empty rail. Now, even excitingly, what we're going to develop now is replicas of the main department stores. So say, for example, Saks handbag floor, and they're buying handbags from one of our brands, customers wholesale. The buyer will be able to, create an assortment by drag and dropping bags from where they're set to a table or wherever they do it in real life. They'll then be able to send that selection to a replica of their store. So it's doing the virtual merchandising for them as well, or albeit part of it. So again, helping to create efficiencies in the fashion supply chain.
And the part of the question is talking about, are we going to develop a new kind of buyer and merchandiser role? You've got any thoughts on that? Because I think I've got a feeling that role's been changing for a while, but sorry,
it has been, I was going to say it has been changing definitely, and I think that role is obviously encompassing more of the online B2C experience as well. And I think you know, it's something that we're kind of learning along the way, really. So we have a number of people internally that do a kind of similar role or work with that role within the brand. But we are seeing a change in how, you know, they want to be able to merchandise their virtual showrooms. And one of the things that we touched on earlier is you are very limited, I think, in terms of a physical space. So that role will be more about using the imagination and finding the more exciting and immersive ways to be able to sell to brands. So it's not just about merchandising a store or a window or a showroom. Now it can be about merchandising absolutely anything that you want. So it's a really big change, I think.
One thing I would say to follow on to that part of the question, the buyer's role, is really interesting, because just like real life, just like the physical world and the traditional world, the buyer is the most important person. In Brand Lab, the buyer is not our customer. For us, the customer is the brand or the agency or the distributor or whoever, the vendor effectively. But it's almost more important for our customers, the buyer, to like our product than our customers, because it's about them, isn't it? Now, with that in mind, and Jen just touched on it, a lot of the new developments that we've got planned now are from feedback from buyers. Assortment Builder was feedback from a senior buyer in Saks in the US, who said, oh, it'd be great if I could just pull that off the shelf and create my assortment on this desk. So the buyers are giving us enormous feedback of how to deploy and accelerate the tech.
Fantastic. Just try and get a few more questions. There's one here about the feeling experience. I think we've touched on that a little bit. How can people feel touch digital items? There's so much we could talk about in this webinar. We haven't got enough time, unfortunately. But is there a possibility that digital design and 3D catwalks will overpower the physical fashion show in future? That's quite an interesting question. Jen, you're itching.
I think that's not just a question for fashion, really. That's kind of a question for the whole world, isn't it? You know, will digital take over in future? And, you know, I hope not, because it's a bit of a scary experience. And, you know, hopefully there'll still be a huge human element involved. And I don't think it will take over. I think it will enhance the industry. And I think it'll assist people in their roles. And certainly from a sustainability point of view, which is really important to us. And I know a lot of other companies, you know, is certainly going to help in that aspect, cost as well. So I don't think it will ever take over completely, unless we have a world kind of run by robots and things like that, which I'm sure is
I'd like to expand on that, because it's a really interesting question. I hope that it doesn't take fashion shows over. Who doesn't like going to fashion shows? I mean, we were lucky to speak at Miami Fashion Week, and the Ritz and the glam of it all was amazing. But the fact is, there is too much travel in the fashion supply chain, and margins are squeezing it. There's only much profit in a garment. And I think when you see big retailers go bust and big brands go into administration and things, the fashion supply chain gets squeezed, and there's so much travel and socializing and all things we love in the supply chain. There's inevitable that digital will take over a huge swathe of that. But I think if you look at fashion shows as the kind of icing on the cake, the kind of the best thing about all fashion, then, you know, they'll always exist. But look how virtual and digital is making more people access it. I mean, I just noticed across the top, someone mentioned diversity and how can it embrace diversity. Well, it can in so many ways, because if you use tech, we can all be at Miami Fashion Week in the front row watching it. We can all be in Shanghai, we can all be in New York. And in terms of connecting people, I mean, our product, we've had situations where we've had a young fashion designer from Malaysia sell to a Finnish boutique on our platform from Cardiff in Wales. You know, so you can bring people together in minutes, bring products together in minutes. You know, you could go on LinkedIn, send your virtual showroom link to a buyer in South America, say, click here, meet me in there, and you're in there together live, face to face in your showroom. So I think it can do all those things and enhance them. But
I think brands, when they're on a product like yours, it's almost a little bit us. Now we've gone online. It's you just have to be diverse, because it's a diverse industry, and it's global. You know. Another one here coming in from Vanessa. I understand the US and Europe is moving forward quickly with the online shopping. How about Asia? ? I live in Thailand for 6 years. I see digital development very slow. What's your opinion on what they should do to speed up this process? Any thoughts on that at all? Or?
Yeah, I think Asia is a kind of an area that we're looking to look at early next year. And I think in terms of consumer buying in Asia, it's still that VIP experience. And I think there's still a lot of kind of VIP direct to consumer selling, if you like. So it's you know, it's difficult with digital. And one of the things that is really important, I think, is that we try and use digital to kind of create that VIP buyer experience as well, from a consumer point of view and from a wholesale point of view. So I think that's quite an important thing for us to look at in Asia, and I think it's a different way of selling in Asia. Definitely, there are many luxury brands that obviously are, you know, have got huge markets in that part of the world. So it's certainly really important for us to look at that very early on the next year. And
I think it's a huge growing market for digital in Asia, because one of the reasons I mentioned America was one of the foremost countries that are kind of adopting digital. One of those reasons is geography, because they have to travel so far to go to shows. You know, they used to, you know, the old-fashioned agents used to take a collection in a van and drive 600 miles up the coast to see a boutique or whatever, and obviously those margins are being squeezed. Asia's the same because it's so vast. So I think it's prime to you know, have digitized trade shows and showrooms and things like that in Asia, due to the sheer scale of the geography out there. But interestingly, although they're not early adopters of using the tech, some of the best artists and 3D digital designers and architectural visualizers are in Asia, and it's a growing market out there. And I think, just again, slightly different way of kind of working in those areas is that a lot of the brands that we know and love are licensed for that particular area. So we're speaking with the licensees of very large brands and looking at ways that we can work with a number of their brands at the same time, creating a, you know, a really open kind of experience for buyers. So that's something that, you know, we're going to be working on very soon. Fantastic. I'm coming to the end of the webinar now, but before I ask my final question, is anybody out there who've got any other questions? Sorry if we haven't answered all your questions. I think we've answered most, but is anyone out there wants to speak to us? Dying for someone to put their hand up and speak to us. If you do, put your hand up. We want to hear voices. I suppose that's one thing. Well, proper voices, not the ones in your head I'm talking about. But anyone, any other questions? If not, I'll sort of start to just ask the last couple of things I wanted to talk to you about, and that is from both the B2B and B2C point of view. Just talk us through what you're going to see, sort of the future of VR within fashion, you know. And I guess the future isn't really that far away, really, because things are changing so fast. So what do you see is happening, and what are you guys planning in terms to respond to how things are changing? Okay, well, in B2C, I touched on it earlier. It's going to be virtual shopping experiences where you are walking around a store, you know, with avatars possibly. I mean, I know, Dale, you've seen one of our products in development where you have an avatar and literally walk around the store, walk around the shelf, click a button, links up to the product page of the e-com site, and you can purchase directly from there. But crucially, you can engage with people, you can talk to people, you can be sold to. People like to be sold to, they like the experience. That's certainly going to happen. I think then you'll see in B2C kind of more creative aspects of doing it. So again, when people design their shops, they do it in a particular way that suits the store that they've purchased or they're leasing. And I mentioned earlier with VR, you can create anything at all. So it's going to be more themed. So, you know, it could be, I know shops are themed to a certain extent, but if there's a swimwear brand, then, you know, you could be on a virtual beach, walking around a virtual beach and seeing the items on models and things like that. So just very much more of the same. And like anything with tech, the more it gets developed, it becomes cheaper to use, cheaper to deploy, and easier to use. And I think it's going to increase on B2C. Yeah. I think from our perspective as a company, we're just going to continue to develop our product to make it easier to use, more accessible, more detailed. So I know we talk about touch and feel, but again, just more detail on products, you know, 360 views in every aspect of the showroom and things like that. And, you know, there's loads that we can do. There's lots of things we've got coming out in the near future as well. But I think we just see ourselves doing more of the same, but just developing it to make it the very best it can be. The one thing I would say that we're determined to do in 2021, one thing I would say, we deal with some of the biggest brands in the world, some of the most famous names, but we'll also do virtual showrooms for one-man band designers, brand new designers, people just out of university. And I think what we'd like to do is kind of democratize fashion in a way, because it'd be so difficult for that person at the university, no matter how good their product is, to get in front of top buyers, get in front of people who could really help drive their business. You know, and even in trade shows, you know, it's quite often it's the bigger guys who do well because, you know, they have better stands, better marketing and everything else. We feel by the use of technology where you could send a link and get in front of someone within seconds or minutes rather than a big effort and a big build-up. We do think it can democratize, hopefully, some younger designers who are really talented to get in front of audiences they wouldn't normally be able to get in front of. So that's one of our missions going into next year. And hopefully we can be successful in that.
I think with the fashion calendar as well, that's something that we really are hoping to change, and again, to make more accessible for whether even, you know, big designers, large companies, small companies. And I think that so many people, like I said previously, are really frustrated by that fashion calendar, that it is so rigid, that people can be a little bit more creative in their own kind of the way that they sell and the way that they have access to their buyers. And I think that's really important going forward, certainly with, you know, all of the economy looking like it is at the moment. People need every chance to be able to reach as many buyers as possible, and that shouldn't be restricted by, you know, a kind of a higher level organization in terms of how you sell. So I think that's really important to us, just kind of direct and very fast access to customers, really.
Yeah, and I think it's this whole COVID situation and the fact that businesses like yours have just risen to the challenge has changed the whole wholesale model altogether, hasn't it? You know, it's just the whole model of wholesaling, the whole model of direct to consumer. It's just, it's really interesting because, I mean, Dan, we've published a vlog, haven't we, of you talking about this on our Facebook page. For those asking questions as well, this will be on our Facebook page. Sorry, Dan's videos on our LinkedIn page, but this webinar will be on our Facebook and our YouTube page if you want to watch it again, or if you want to pass it on to anybody. But it's been really interesting, and the conversations I'm having here at the Fashion Network about all of this is just, it's just changing week to week and month to month. You know, the whole model's changing. I don't know if there's anyone out there exactly knows what the model is going to be in the next 6 to 12 months, to be honest. I don't know, you know, if you feel the same. But,
I do. It's changing all the time. But I just think what's not in doubt is that the onset of digitisation is just going to accelerate more and more and more and more. Even if this dreadful pandemic went away and you know, and never came back again in any way, it still made people realize that digital, it doesn't have to replace existing models. It's a complementary enhancement to the distribution channels, and it can create so many efficiencies. I just think that anyone listening, whether it's a student or a brand or a buyer or anyone in between, the more focus, I think, of your time you put on coming to terms with digital and virtual reality and those type of technologies, the better. Because however the landscape looks, it's going to be around digital. And you know what? Even if COVID didn't happen, it would have happened anyway because of market forces. The fact is, the fashion supply chain is being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed for all the obvious reasons we know. And if digital can create efficiencies or enhancements in that supply chain, all the better. So whatever happens, we believe the future is certainly digital.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of our aim to monitor the situation as we go forward, whether it be with a pandemic or just changes in the industry, and just be really reactive to that, and to continue to talk to our customers, to take feedback, to find out what they want and find the best ways of developing that, and you know, allowing people to kind of be really involved in our process as well going forward.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Our hour is up and we've still got questions coming in, so I'm sorry about this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share your email. There's one about courses. There's a few here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring up a closing slide. Sorry for those we haven't answered those questions. But if you want to get in touch with Brand Lab Fashion, here is the email. Hold on, sorry. There we go. My Zoom bar is in front of it. There you go. So it's hello@brandlabfashion.com. Our Fashion Network emails above that if anyone wants to chat to us as well. But yeah, so there's been a couple of people already asking Dan about costs and stuff like that, so I've just emailed them your email. Any other questions, guys, after this, feel free to email one of us, either Dan and Jen or ourselves, and we'll do our best to follow up with it. Apologies if we've not been able to answer everyone's questions, but normally if this was a live event, we would say thank you in a round of applause, and we'd probably go to the bar for a vino. But unfortunately, that's
and have a glass of champagne.
Another glass of champagne, exactly. So guys, I really appreciate your time. I'm going to leave this slide up for everybody who's in the audience, and I'll leave it up for about another minute or so you can copy it down.
Dale, I was just going to say very quickly, if anyone wants like an individual demo, some of our staff are on this call, and we have staff that speak French, Italian, Spanish and other languages. If anyone wants, you know, a demo in their language or whatever, please get in touch on hello@brandlabflash.com about whatever you want to talk about. And we do love talking to everyone about this. So please get in touch, and we'll look forward to further chats.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Is there one in Welsh as well, Dan? Or
no. Oh, actually, yeah, Danny, that one's on you, I think. Yeah. Yeah, we do have a Welsh speaker.
Well, thank you very much, diolch yn fawr, and I'll leave this up for everybody here. So yeah, I'll leave it for a minute or two. Thanks, guys. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.